Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we cut through the noise and get straight to the core of fascinating topics. Today, we're embarking on a deep dive into an event that has, well, puzzled military officials and ignited the imaginations of UFO enthusiasts for decades. The mysterious Holloman Air Force Base UFO landing of 1971.
Exactly. And we've delved into an extensive report for this one. It's a thorough compilation of eyewitness testimonies, military records, scientific analyses, too. Our mission really is to unravel the known facts, explore the various theories, and truly understand why this particular incident remains one of the most intriguing unsolved mysteries in ufology.
So what does this all mean for you, our curious listener? Well, you're about to gain a thorough understanding of an event shrouded in secrecy. We'll explore how evidence gets scrutinized and why, even with today's advanced tech, some mysteries just stubbornly resist resolution.
Yeah, absolutely.
Our goal is to give you those aha moments and, just enough surprising facts to make you the most informed person in any conversation about unexplained phenomena.
Okay, so before we jump into the specific events of 1971, our source material reveals something pretty crucial. Holloman Air Force Base wasn't just some random location for this incident. It was a place already steeped in unusual sightings.
Yeah.
That context seems essential, right, for understanding the main event. What was that atmosphere like, maybe years before the supposed landing?
That's a great point. The initial reports emerging from the Holloman area, even prior to 71, are particularly compelling. Why? Because they so often came from military personnel themselves. These weren't, typical UFO enthusiasts. They were trained observers who found themselves bewildered by inexplicable lights and objects moving in ways that, that simply defied understanding. Some described bright, pulsating orbs. Others saw fast-moving craft that were completely silent, no sound, no exhaust, nothing. Right, so we're talking consistent reports from credible, trained observers, even before the main event in 71. That's significant. And the source notes these sightings sometimes coincided with strange electromagnetic disturbances or disruptions in communication signals.
Exactly. That adds another layer, doesn't it?
It really does.
And when we connect this to the broader picture, the early 1970s, well, it was a period ripe for such narratives. You had the peak of the Cold War, intense rivalry, profound secrecy between the U.S. and the Soviet Union.
Right, the space race, too.
The space race, yeah.
Yeah.
It fueled both great optimism about what was possible, but also this deep undercurrent of paranoia. What might they be developing? This created fertile ground for stories of unidentified objects to gain traction, often viewed through the lens of national security or maybe cutting-edge science.
I can definitely see that. And the source even highlights Project Blue Book. That was the Air Force's big UFO investigation, for those who don't know. It was still active then, and the report notes it would often dismiss or downplay evidence.
It did. And that official secrecy, paradoxically, it only seemed to heighten suspicions among enthusiasts and researchers.
Like a feedback loop.
Precisely. A self-reinforcing cycle.
Okay, now let's pinpoint the central event. September 1971. The source details the initial reports of the unidentified object. Were there striking similarities between the military and civilian accounts?
Yes, remarkably so.
Yeah.
The reports, whether from trained military personnel or nearby civilians, they painted a really consistent picture. A strange, luminous craft moving in unconventional ways, performing maneuvers that, frankly, defy known aircraft physics.
How so?
Well, military witnesses particularly noted its sudden appearance, rapid accelerations, and completely silent movements. And this was across various weather conditions, too.
And civilians.
Civilians, often seeing it during, just routine activities, described it as a bright light, sometimes flickering or changing colors, often with a slow approach before it would just speed away rapidly, gone.
That consistency across such different observers, that's what's really striking here. The source points out both groups described objects larger than a plane, yet lacking any recognizable markings or emissions. That does suggest something truly anomalous.
It does.
And the immediate reaction you mentioned, awe, confusion, fear, but also that instinct to grab a camera, it really brings home the human element, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It's a crucial point. And it leads us to consider the environmental context as well.
Right, the weather.
Yeah. The source delves into weather conditions during these sightings. It notes that while many occurred under clear skies, others were linked to unusual atmospheric phenomena. Things like temperature inversions or maybe heat plumes, which we know can distort light.
Okay, so potential natural explanations.
Potentially. This really highlights the importance of meticulous record keeping, doesn't it? Even a simple weather log could help differentiate between, say, a natural optical illusion and a genuinely unexplained phenomenon.
So the environment itself could potentially obscure or even mimic these sightings. How did the military and civilians typically react right after an object like this appeared?
Oh, the military response was immediate and comprehensive. The source details these rapid deployment protocols being activated, things like tight lockdowns, securing the area,
Yeah.
constant surveillance with high-res
There's
cameras.
the res cameras back then.
Apparently so.
Yeah.
And even drone patrols, the report mentions.
Wow. And the civilian side?
More varied. Reactions ranged from panic to intense curiosity, often amplified by local media and maybe early forms of social networking, which could easily sensationalize things, making it tough, to sort fact from fiction.
Sure.
And this often led authorities to issue those official statements, denying any unusual activity, sometimes dismissing sightings very quickly without much explanation.
Right. Okay, so we have consistent sightings, immediate reactions, but the big question, what did this thing actually look like? The source gives some surprisingly detailed descriptions.
They are quite detailed. Witness accounts varied, naturally, but they were remarkably specific sometimes. Shapes ranged from, well, the classic discs or saucer-like shapes to elongated rods, triangular silhouettes, or even what some described as amorphous blobs.
Amorphous blobs. That definitely stretches the imagination.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And sizes varied widely, too, from maybe just a few meters across to potentially enormous structures spanning hundreds of meters.
Hundreds. Wow.
And colors. Colors included metallic hues like silver or chrome, but also iridescent sheens, deep black, or even shifting colors.
Okay, blobs aside, the source also describes incredible surface details. Smooth, shiny, maybe luminous, geometric patterns, even flickering digital displays.
Yes, embedded right into the surface, according to some accounts. It really does sound like something out of science fiction.
It absolutely does. So how did these visual accounts stack up against what radar or other technical data might have picked up?
That's where it often gets really interesting. The source stresses the importance of radar and other technical data. Radar signatures frequently showed, well, sudden jumps in altitude, rapid acceleration, or unusual movement trajectories that just don't fit any conventional aviation profile.
Like impossible turns.
Exactly. Things that known aircraft simply can't do. Some detected what they call ghost signals, brief, unidentifiable blips that could be dismissed as interference.
Right. Easily explained away.
Except, the key here was the consistency of these patterns across different radar stations. That suggests these weren't just glitches. They seem to be genuine anomalies.
And the mention of technical anomalies that defy gravity or aerodynamic limits, like instant acceleration or hovering without any engine noise, that pushes beyond known physics.
It absolutely does. It makes you wonder, if you were investigating back then, how would you even start to separate the truly anomalous from, say, someone having fun with a weather balloon?
Good question.
And it's precisely that challenge that brings us to the physical evidence. The source notes that after some UFO encounters, researchers meticulously documented physical traces, artifacts.
Like what?
Things like impressions in the ground showing unusual shapes, metallic debris with unfamiliar alloys, maybe isotopes in proportions never seen naturally,
Really?
and burn marks suggesting intense energy discharges. These tangible clues, when they're carefully collected and analyzed, they can really validate eyewitness accounts, and they provide actual material for scientific analysis.
Okay, so physical traces too. Now the source highlights the crucial role of the witnesses themselves. Let's start with the military personnel. What kind of accounts did they provide?
Well, for decades, accounts from pilots, radar operators, base officials, they've been pivotal. Pilots reported strange lights or actual crash maneuvering in ways that, again, defied known physics, often captured over radio transmissions.
So audio evidence too, potentially.
Potentially, yes. And radar operators. They captured inexplicable images, tracked objects appearing and disappearing without warning, often coinciding with visual sightings, which, adds a significant layer of credibility.
So it wasn't just people seeing things, the equipment was seeing it too. Corroboration. And the source even suggests these reports were taken pretty seriously at the highest levels of command. How did the internal military reports differ from the public statements?
That's a key point. The internal military reports, they stand in stark contrast to the public communications. They often reveal a level of high-level interest, maybe even concern, suggesting the observed phenomena were indeed taken very seriously. These internal documents often contain far more detailed descriptions, analyses, sometimes hinting at classified programs specifically dedicated to analyzing these sightings.
Interesting. Okay, shifting to the civilian side. The source mentions the raw honesty and emotional intensity of their reports. Why is that distinction important?
Well, civilian accounts, While maybe less polished or technical, they often offer this really visceral reaction: fear, awe, confusion.
Yeah,
It brings the human side of the mystery to life.
right.
But assessing their credibility involves looking at consistency over time. If a witness maintains a steady description year after year, their reliability increases. But it raises that important question: how do we effectively distinguish between genuine sightings and, say, misinterpretations, or even outright hoaxes?
Mm.
Especially when details can change over time. Memory is tricky.
Very true. And the source suggests the answer often lies in matching these accounts with the physical and technological evidence, right?
Exactly. If multiple witnesses describe a silent, hovering object,
Mm.
and then radar confirms a fast-moving object in that exact area at the same time, well, it becomes much harder to dismiss.
That's the objective link.
That's the link you look for.
Okay, so we've got a strange craft, consistent sightings, even reports of physical traces. How did the military actually respond on the ground? What protocols were activated at Holloman?
The source details a pretty comprehensive set of security protocols.
Hmm.
Swiftly activated. We're talking tight lockdowns, reinforced barriers, continuous monitoring with those high-resolution cameras, and even drone patrols.
Drone patrols back then is still surprising.
It is. Command teams implemented cordon management protocols too. Basically, controlling information flow, establishing secure zones, all aimed at detecting, identifying, and if necessary, intercepting these unknown objects.
One particularly intriguing detail you mentioned was the signal jamming or electronic countermeasures attempts by military interceptors. That sounds like more than just passive observation.
Precisely. It suggests a deliberate effort to interact with or maybe disrupt the object, not just watch it fly by.
Yeah,
And this leads us directly to the government's official stance at the time, which was often,
denial.
pretty much. When unexplained aerial phenomena occur, the first response is often these official statements denying any unusual activity. Statements like, "No unusual activity has been detected." They aim to control the narrative, reassure the public.
Yeah.
But, as the source points out, they often lack detailed data. They use generalized language, which of course tends to fuel skepticism rather than quell it.
Right. Which brings us back to the government's broader involvement in historical secrecy, especially around Project Blue Book.
Exactly. Project Blue Book, established 52, investigated thousands of UFO reports, many near military bases like Holloman. And while it officially concluded most sightings were explainable,
There was always that percentage.
a notable percentage remained unexplained, constantly fueling speculation. And the source specifically notes those consistent radar visual correlations at Holloman, meaning radar detecting objects that pilots were simultaneously seeing visually, objects performing maneuvers that defied known aircraft's capabilities.
And even after Blue Book shut down.
Even after it officially closed, other agencies, the FAA, the CIA, they continued to show interest in UAP data, often framed in terms of national security threats or maybe understanding advanced technology.
And the secrecy around these incidents, it's a huge part of the story. The source mentions leaked documents, classified files that can potentially shift the narrative. It even alleges, and this is a strong claim, that paperwork was deliberately altered or destroyed to keep proof from the public.
It is a strong accusation. But this brings us to a significant shift we've seen more recently, say, over the last decade or so.
Declassification.
Declassification and public disclosure, yeah. There's been a noticeable move towards greater transparency, driven by public demand but also internal policy changes. The release of government videos showing UAP unidentified aerial phenomena, the new term often captured by military pilots, that's been a real turning point.
It definitely legitimized the discussion.
Absolutely. This whole movement, while it's gradual and certainly not without controversy, it means researchers now have access to more credible, high-quality information than ever before.
Okay, moving beyond the official statements and secrecy. Let's talk about the unusual phenomena and any physical evidence. What kinds of material samples, if any, have been retrieved from sites like Holloman?
This is fascinating. Scientists examining retrieved samples, things like metal fragments, mineral deposits, maybe even biological specimens, have occasionally encountered materials that, well, they defy typical expectations.
How so?
They can exhibit abnormal properties, elements, or alloys that are unfamiliar to standard scientific knowledge. Or, for instance, showing radiation levels significantly higher than the natural background radiation, which raises profound questions about their source and the nature of that radiation.
That is truly compelling. Now, connecting that to the visual evidence, how do photographs and video footage help us understand these events? And what are the challenges in analyzing that kind of evidence?
Analyzing visual evidence. It really is like piecing together a complex puzzle. The source highlights scrutinizing the origin of the footage first, looking for signs of tampering, inconsistent shadows, unnatural movements, that sort of thing.
Right, weeding up the fakes.
Exactly. The challenge often lies in distinguishing genuine anomalies from, say, visual artifacts caused by poor resolution back then, or misidentification of known objects, drones, planes, even atmospheric phenomena like ball lightning or those strange-looking lenticular clouds.
So it requires a balance.
A delicate balance, yes.
Yeah.
Curiosity and skepticism.
And what about the environmental impact, geological changes? Did these craft leave a physical signature on the ground itself?
Sometimes, yes. The source details researchers looking for things like scorched or melted ground, unusual indentations, displaced soil, all suggesting intense heat or energy discharges.
Okay.
They also examine surrounding ecosystems, changes in vegetation growth, soil chemistry, water quality, and additionally unexplained high-energy readings, magnetic anomalies, or electrical malfunctions in the area are key indicators.
Which again leads to the question.
Right. Are these geological disturbances just natural phenomena we don't fully understand? Or do they point to external interventions, maybe related to advanced unknown technology?
Okay, so we have all these compelling observations, lingering questions, but no definitive answers, which naturally leads us to the theories. Let's start with the big one, the extraterrestrial hypothesis. What are its core arguments?
Well, the idea hinges on highly advanced alien technology. Technology capable of interstellar travel, making an appearance here, and leaving behind traces that are inexplicable by conventional means. Supporters point to the unusual sightings documented by multiple credible witnesses. They point to physical remnants like those metallic fragments with strange alloys, and the radar data showing flight characteristics inconsistent with any known human-made tech.
But skepticism is always present, isn't it? What are the main counter-arguments?
Oh, definitely. Many experts argue that natural phenomena like atmospheric anomalies, maybe even hallucinations or just human perception errors, could account for many sightings. They also frequently cite experimental military projects or advanced drones as common terrestrial explanations. Secret stuff we just don't know about. And a key question the source explores is, where is the truly definitive physical evidence? The smoking gun that unequivocally proves an alien origin.
The extraordinary claims require extraordinary proof idea.
Exactly. And that proof, skeptics argue, is often missing.
Okay, that leads us perfectly into the secret military technology theory. The source says many researchers speculate the military operates secret projects involving cutting-edge tech. How does that explain some sightings?
Well, these projects are often theorized to include experimental aircraft, unmanned aerial vehicles, UAVs, maybe even technologies that push the very boundaries of physics.
Like what?
The source explicitly mentions that elements of these covert projects are suspected to involve things like anti-gravity, advanced stealth, maybe even energy manipulation technology, which aligns perfectly with those observed impossible maneuvers, rapid acceleration, sudden stops, silent hovering. Examples like the Bell X-1, the SR-71 Blackbird, even the rumored Aurora project. These are cited as known or suspected aircraft whose advanced capabilities might easily be mistaken for something otherworldly.
So, some UFO sightings could simply be advanced prototypes kept under wraps. Makes sense. But what about purely natural atmospheric anomalies? You mentioned those earlier.
Right. Many sightings can indeed be explained by optical illusions. Things caused by temperature inversions, mirages, light interacting with atmospheric particles in weird ways. Phenomena like ball lightning, St. Elmo's fire, or those lenticular clouds we mentioned, they can look remarkably like strange crafts sometimes.
But they don't explain everything.
They don't explain everything. The source notes these explanations typically fall short when objects move in ways physics, as we know it, can't naturally explain, especially when they exhibit what looks like intelligent flight characteristics, intentional movement.
Okay.
It just underscores the need to analyze each case really meticulously, on its own merits.
And finally, the less exciting explanation, common hoaxes and misinterpretations. What are the typical tricks used there, and how do we separate fact from fiction?
Yeah, this is always a factor. The source details everything from elaborate hoaxes using, models or lights, to simple camera tricks, and just honest misinterpretations of natural phenomena.
Like lens flares.
Lens flares, reflections, misidentifying bright planets like Venus or weather balloons, all common culprits. Separating authentic reports requires looking for those key characteristics we talked about. Truly silent, hovering, impossible maneuvers.
And corroboration.
And crucially, corroboration from multiple credible witnesses,
Yeah.
ideally backed up by clear, verifiable evidence like radar data.
So the advice is caution.
Yeah, the practical advice from the source is basically practice a cautious approach. Always question unusual sightings and consider the simple explanations first before jumping to more exotic ones.
Got it. Okay, so this event, whatever its true nature, clearly had a profound impact. How did the local media cover it back in '71, and what were the public reactions around Holloman AFB?
Oh, the initial media coverage, the source notes, was intense, often sensationalizing details, blurring the line between fact and rumor, which, early social media probably amplified later on.
Right.
Public reactions varied wildly. From awe and hope, maybe we're not alone, to outright disbelief or suspicion. It's just the government testing secret weapons.
A real mix.
A real mix, yeah. Local communities experienced fear, fascination. There were demands for transparency from the base, even amateur investigations popping up. And conspiracy theories, as we've discussed, they naturally flourished. On message boards, local gatherings, you name it.
It really shook people's worldview, it sounds like. What about the psychological and cultural effects on residents living near the base?
Yeah, the source says encounters like these tend to shake the very foundation of what people consider normal or possible. It can lead to a real transformation in their worldview. Some start questioning ingrained beliefs about the universe, our place in it. Others might cling more tightly to traditional explanations as a defense mechanism.
And for some, it becomes an obsession.
For some, yes. These events can ignite a lifelong fascination, maybe even obsession, with extraterrestrial life or unexplained phenomena. And it's intriguing, isn't it, to consider how these events then morph into local legends, tales passed down through generations, influencing local customs, folklore, maybe even tourism eventually.
That is a fascinating cultural legacy. And what were the long-term changes at Holloman AFB itself, particularly regarding security and operational procedures related to UAP?
Well, Holloman underwent some significant transformations in how it managed security and procedures concerning UAP, according to the source. While initially focused on, traditional Cold War threats, the base began integrating specialized protocols, specifically to document, monitor, and analyze these unusual phenomena.
So they adapted.
They adapted. It evolved from simple log entries to more sophisticated multi-layered systems, involving advanced radar, aerial reconnaissance, even integrating civilian data sometimes.
But still secret.
Despite the advancements and maybe some moves toward international cooperation on the topic, a layer of confidentiality still remains, largely driven by national security interests, understandably. Holloman has definitely earned a reputation over time, one of the most intriguing locations in the U.S. for UFO history, really, due to its numerous high strangeness incidents and its proximity to other famous sites like White Sands.
Right. Now, this enduring mystery has clearly fueled a lot of conspiracy theories. What are the main accusations of government conspiracy surrounding UFOs and events like Holloman?
Yeah, the conspiracy angle is huge. Many people genuinely believe that governments, especially the U.S. government, have been actively concealing crucial information about extraterrestrial contact for decades. This belief gets fueled by witness accounts, those radar traces we talked about, suspected secret military tests, and specific interpretations of leaked or declassified documents.
And the core claim is...
The core claim is usually that governments are hiding either actual alien craft, maybe recovered craft like at Roswell, or perhaps highly advanced, human-made technology derived from it. Why? To avoid societal chaos, maybe? Or to prevent rival nations from getting their hands on the tech. Incidents like Roswell and Area 51 are always the key examples cited.
And the source talks about even more extreme theories like alien abductions or experiments. How do alleged landings connect to those?
Well, this prompts a deeper, darker question for some theorists. Are landings like Holloman maybe fronts for secret experiments, or even psychological operations designed to confuse the public or test reactions? Some theories go further, suggesting governments might be experimenting with recovered alien technology, or even, in the most extreme versions, collaborating with extraterrestrial entities. The source mentions claims, mind you, of secret programs attempting to create hybrid beings, part human, part alien, or clandestine research facilities where humans and alien materials are studied intensively.
That's deep into the conspiracy realm. What about the whistleblowers and insiders the source mentions? How do their stories factor in?
Right, the whistleblowers. These are individuals claiming to be former government officials, military personnel, scientists, people who say they were on the inside. They often describe highly advanced technology, undisclosed projects, or sightings and encounters with beings that defy conventional understanding.
Do their stories align?
Accounts vary, but some maintain they were part of covert programs, maybe designed to reverse engineer alien technology or simply to monitor extraterrestrial activity. The challenge, as the source rightly notes, is rigorously assessing their credibility. Are there specific, verifiable details, or just vague generalities? And what are their motivations for coming forward now? It's complex.
Very complex. Okay, let's shift focus back to the scientific investigations. How do scientists typically approach analyzing these sightings, and what are the limitations they face?
Well, scientists ideally begin with careful assessments, scrutinizing the evidence for known natural phenomena first, then human-made objects, misinterpretations, always considering context like weather, lighting, location. The source mentions that some official evaluations have concluded certain sightings simply lack sufficient evidence to draw a firm conclusion. Others remain open to explanations like experimental aircraft or foreign surveillance drones.
What are the main criticisms of the available evidence from a scientific standpoint?
The main critiques often highlights the inherent challenges in verifying field evidence. It can be prone to manipulation, the quality of original photos or videos might be poor, and human memory, as we know, is fallible and prone to bias.
Right. So how has technology changed the game more recently? And what are the future research directions in this field?
Technology has made a huge difference. Historically, technological limitations were significant hurdles. But today, rapid advancements have opened entirely new avenues. The source details how present-day sensors, things like thermal imaging, high-definition video, provide much higher fidelity data than ever before.
And AI.
And AI-powered algorithms, yeah. They're excelling at pattern recognition, sifting through vast archives of data, spotting patterns or outliers humans might miss.
What about future research?
Future directions likely involve deploying multi-sensor arrays specifically designed to capture UAP data, using more sophisticated machine learning tools, maybe even establishing dedicated research stations in hotspots to systematically record phenomena. The ultimate goal seems to be an integrated approach, bringing together experts from diverse fields, aerospace engineers, atmospheric scientists, psychologists, data analysts, everyone.
Makes sense. So with all this history, the theories, and modern tech, how are we re-examining the evidence of the Holloman landing today? What have recent declassifications revealed, if anything specific to Holloman? Well, there's been a recent surge of newly released documents and testimonies that is reshaping UAP research generally. Governments are gradually lifting classifications, providing fresh glimpses into encounters that were secret for so long. We now have access to declassified aircraft reports, intercepted communications, sometimes even authenticated photographs or videos. And these revelations often clarify past dismissals. For instance, radar tracking data that's now publicly available might demonstrate objects moving at speeds, executing maneuvers that genuinely surpass known human-made aircraft capabilities, things that were previously denied or explained away.
And it's fascinating how modern tech lets us reevaluate old data too, right? The source mentions high-res scans of old photos, digital tools analyzing historical weather and radar.
Absolutely. Machine learning algorithms, like we said, can sift through vast archives identifying patterns. Remote sensing tech, like satellite imagery, is invaluable for comparing historical site data with current high-res images. This means artifacts, photos, radar plots recorded decades ago can be reevaluated with fresh eyes and new tools, potentially changing the narrative.
But not always solving the mystery.
Not always, no. It's important to note that even with these tools, some sightings still defy easy identification.
So what does the Holloman landing represent in today's context? The source called it a classically unsolved enigma. Why does it endure?
It remains one of the most intriguing unsolved mysteries in UAP history, I think, primarily because of that potent combination. Credible eyewitness accounts, the potential for physical evidence, and the persistent mystery surrounding its origins. Plus, the involvement of high-ranking military personnel at a prominent Air Force base. That naturally raises compelling questions. Was it classified technology, or was it something more?
Alien intervention, you mean?
That's the ultimate question for many, yes. Its unresolved nature continues to fuel intense debates. It amplifies both curiosity and skepticism. It really embodies the frustration, but also the excitement that many feel when confronted with phenomena that just defy our existing explanations.
The Holloman AFB UFO Landing of 1971. It really does challenge our fundamental understanding of the universe, and maybe our place within it. It forces us to confront the limits of our current knowledge, and that tantalizing possibility that there's far more happening in our skies than we currently comprehend.
And it prompts a really profound question, doesn't it? If even decades of scientific analysis and all these newly declassified documents still can't definitively explain incidents like Holloman, what does that truly say about the scope of what remains unknown? Are we just scratching the surface of a reality far more complex than we can even imagine? Or perhaps is the answer hidden in plain sight somehow, just waiting for the right perspective, the right technology maybe to emerge?
And that really is the enduring mystery, isn't it? What if the most profound secrets about our existence aren't necessarily found looking out at distant planets, but have already made a landing right here on Earth, leaving behind these tantalizing clues that maybe we are still just learning how to read? That's it for this deep dive. Join us next time as we continue our quest for truth, one compelling story at a time.